So I'd like to just start off today by acknowledging, speaking of computational education and systems, that education, of course, is a system. And like most systems, it was designed by a very few, but it impacts most. And that this system of education that we still have today was designed hundreds of years ago, and yet it looks so similar to what was designed back then. And it is too often rooted in racism, sexism, and other forms of violence and oppression. So simply put, education is not neutral. We are coming to acknowledge that computational education is not, and I would argue must not be siloed. Rather, computational literacy and digital citizenship are necessary aspects of being able to live a fully participatory and self-determined life. As we build more opportunities for computational education at Duke, we must ensure that we are designing equitably, and not only for the world we have today, but also for the world we hope to see tomorrow. So what if we could create joyful, equitable and joyful contexts for computational learning that enabled all students to thrive in today's world and help create a more flourishing tomorrow? So in my view, open design can help us get there. Open design is an equity-centered innovation methodology inspired by the key principles of open source software and human-centered design. So the first principle I'd like to briefly talk about, active inclusivity, and also just give a very brief example of how that shows up in one of the courses that I'm teaching. So active inclusivity in this context does not just mean performative, which unfortunately is sometimes how we see it now. It's derived from a tradition of ethical hospitality that was seen in continental philosophers like Derrida and Levinas, where the host, or we can think about it as the kind of lowercase I, have such a sacred responsibility to the other, to thou, that I am indeed culpable for the acts of the other. So this is the depth and the authenticity of the relationship that we're talking about when we talk about active inclusivity in this process of open design. Unfortunately, we hear, and many of us have lived experiences daily of the inequity in technological algorithms, systems, products, and how that inequity is coded into technology. So in my view, this inequity is in large part a problem of the very inequity in computational education that starts way before college in K-12. In a course that I teach called Designing Ethical Tech, students use this process of open design. And for at least the first half of the semester, they engage in the understand phase, where they do deep empathy work, qualitative research collection, data gathering to deeply understand this crisis of underrepresentation in computational education. Transparency. We are obviously all familiar with the way this word is used, the connotations, the denotations that it shares, that it has, the idea of growth and vitality, but access to knowledge, open education, the idea that education in its most natural state should not be siloed, gated, or chained behind paywalls. In another course that I teach at Duke called CS by Us, Duke students used, again, this open design process with this open design pedagogy to co-create open educational resources focused on justice-centered computer science. and computational education. They did this with co-designers who were educators in the Durham community, and we've now grown to educators across North Carolina and indeed North America, which is very exciting. Lastly, collaboration. In another course that I'm teaching called Transformative Learning, students really focus on this idea of, again, not performative collaboration, not group work, not the idea of divide and conquer, not slicing a pie into 4 parts, which really is just a surface collaging, a cut and pasting, but the idea that they are better together in organic co-creation, that what they create could not have happened otherwise. It is co-labor. And in this course, Transformative Learning, students are, again, using open design to think about what do students need to thrive in the 21st century as they graduate from Duke, and how can we create more transformative learning experiences at Duke. And so as I hope is clear from this, the really kind of most important aspect of this work is the open piece. There are some other key ideas, concepts, but really it's about trying to bring down that wall between what we do at Duke and what happens in the world around us, which is an artificial and quite violent wall at times. So I'll close with Freire's hope that education allows us to see reality in transformation, and note that as computational education, just like technology itself, continues to emerge at lightning speeds, we must remember that now is the time to transform and design it with all voices authentically at the table. So that is what I and many of my colleagues at Duke are trying to do. Thank you very much.